Hello and welcome to our talk this week. Our guest is Gina Donaldson. She's with us, and I'm Mark Davenport, and the mentor and motivator behind whatever happens here is Heidi Hörnlein. Yeah. We come to you from Paradiso Integrale here in Umbria, in Italy, with this series of conscious aging, which will continue into April with a total of 13 episodes with guests. But before we meet Gina, Heidi will point out how to get the most out of viewing today.
Yeah, not only today. I want to show you three charts. You can find the whole program of the series in bit.ly/conscious aging, by G is with a big letter and aging A is with a big letter. While if you want to register to get reminders for every episode, that's the same thing, bit.ly/conscious aging, together and with all small letters. And today, if you want to participate live and send us your comments and your questions, you can go to thewisdomfactory.net/live-streaming. I hope it is understandable without misspelling. I'm not so good in spelling. So
yeah, I think we should make our guests repeat that. No. So we know that they know. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Heidi. And now, before any more words, let's let Gina say hello. Gina.
Hi, everyone. This is Gina Donaldson coming to you from beautiful British Columbia in Canada, west coast of Canada.
West coast, all right.
We are 9 hours apart, so it's morning in your part and it's dark here.
Dark, yeah. Well, anyway, a few words about Gina. She is an accredited expert in change management with over 30 years of professional personnel administration, business and consulting, and life experience. She also has experience with the Canadian military, in medical and hospital programs, and in private industry. A Reiki master. She's also trained in counseling, suicide prevention, and I had to stop there because there was just so much more we could add. But that all preceded her preparation for her latest and current interest in personal passage planning, which she'll be talking about with us today.
Yeah, and actually the title, How to Prepare for Life Transformations. That's the title of our conversation today.
So, Gina, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself or correct any lies we've told?
Oh, no, we all tell salty dips and lies. It's part of being in the Navy. We always say that. No, first of all, I would just like to say thank you very much for inviting me. And you have actually, the both of you have been a very important part of me and getting my business to a new level, because I love attending your sessions. They've been very informative. And so I just like to start off saying thank you very much, because it's really helped me in my business, which is very new.
Thank you. And, we very appreciated you coming up all the time and leaving your comments. You are a model for engaging with the shows. While I see there are people in the live transmission and they're sort of shy and don't write anything, don't say anything. You always showed up, and this is really...
Yeah,
thank you.
So nice. Yeah, I guess she's an engager or something.
She's an engager.
Yes. Okay.
Exactly. Or an instigator. So speaking of instigating, the interesting thing about doing this business is that this is something, as we all know, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're never too young to die. However, with our various cultures and taboos, this is not a conversation that is being held as often as it probably should around familiar places like family kitchen tables, by the fireside, just in general conversation with our friends of similar ages. So it's been a very challenging business to launch and to get people to engage, because they're usually having those conversations when it's too late. So with a funeral director, with a palliative care doctor, and other end-of-life people. So the idea, which lawyers, of course, are trying to get us to do all the time, of actually taking an active interest in all aspects of your life and creating a plan that you can work with, and this is the key. It has to be something that you can work with, not just for end of life, but for all the changes that come along. And
exactly, that was what I wanted to ask. You are not only talking about dying, you are also talking about maybe divorce or whatever can happen. The spouse runs away, the children run away, who knows?
I would like some preparation for puberty. I did not ask for that.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but I start with adults, so you have to be 19. And yeah. But you're right, Heidi. It actually has to do with any type of change. And that was one of the things that, in helping people understand the importance of doing this before you are old, is exactly that. Because becoming an adult is a change. You are now legally responsible for yourself. Moving to another city is a change. Getting married, having children, losing your job, retirement. Getting in a car accident or a motorcycle accident, snowboarding, a sport injury. All these things happen to us all the time. And despite the fact that our papers are filled with obituaries and the news is filled with people being hurt or injured or dying on a daily basis, we still seem to think them, not us.
Oh, I think that's why they tell us that. So we can say, aha, escaped again.
Got out of it.
Survived, yes.
And I think part of the issue is that sometimes the preparations, they do take us to our core. And they cause us to think about our mortality. And yet, if you actually do this work, there's a sense of calm that comes over you because you feel more in control, and you know that if you need help, you've put in place something where somebody else can help you. And most of my clients find they start off, it's kind of awkward because the kids don't want to talk about, and how old are your kids? They're 50 and they don't want to talk about it. We better get that conversation started. But it's also very daunting to try and put a life plan together, one that will actually be comprehensive enough to be useful. And so it starts off as a little scary, becomes a bit daunting. But if you take a structured approach, and I will walk you through it, and you break it down into manageable bites, then you've got a really good start. And at the end of it, you just go, okay. And it doesn't mean that the plan, as I tell people, it's not in case of death, break glass. It's not like that. It's something that you use on an ongoing basis. So, for instance, something as simple as my insurance premium came due. So I see I compared last year, it was here, and now it's more. I wonder what I want to do about that. But you replace things. So it's about managing it on an ongoing basis. So it doesn't gain dust. It's not hidden. Everybody in the family knows it's there, and you know how to work it. Yeah, that's the concept.
Well, we feel very proud of ourselves for having recently filled out here in Italy instructions about how to we want to be taken care of if we can't take care of ourselves.
Right.
But all the other things which we already heard Gina talking about, it's not yet really in place. So sort of, we have written something and it's somewhere. And I really do hope that you tell us more, extensively about what we could do to get the things in place a little better. And maybe all the other people who will watch that or are watching, that they get an inspiration to do it.
Yeah.
But I was telling another story.
You were telling another story?
Yes.
What were you telling?
Well, after we filled this out, in quite detail and felt quite comfortable with what plans we'd made or what instructions we had left, there's no place to file it.
No, it is becoming. That's all new. It has become law that you can do that only a short time ago.
But not in our city.
Mark, you're addressing something interesting. So finding it, first of all, it shouldn't be hidden. But finding it, there are businesses that are actually allowing you to post things like your wills and living wills or representation agreements, as they're sometimes called, online. Those have an ongoing cost to maintain.
Yeah.
And you have to decide if that's worth it. There are other ways that you can make this available to people. So I think it's a matter of, you can share things on drives, you can put things in Dropboxes. Like, there's many options for storing things, and you should have backups, absolutely, because there are natural disasters like fires and floods. And so what is your backup? But to your point, Heidi, let's get started and see if we can, I can show you. Now, I'm just going to wave this by very quickly. Lots of agencies hand out these books. Say, fill this out. Funeral homes will give you those, some investment planners. But it doesn't work for most people. Most people don't fill it out because it's not them, it's not customized, it's not personalized. Everybody's different, and what's going on in your life has to be something that you can update easily and without a lot of fuss. This is not easily updated. This could be easily lost and thrown in the recycling bin. So let me show you what my family resource looks like. This is about standard. Okay, so this is I call this a life log because I'm a nautical type person, and it has 8 sections. So the first section is the legal section, and the legal section is, in my view, the foundation, because there are requirements to have a will in place if you want people to be able to manage your estate. Now, in BC here, 45% of adults in BC do not have a will. That's a problem. When we look at the age group, if we're not talking about this is just not for people who are nearing end of life, actually 80% of adults between the ages of 18 and 34 do not have a will. So despite the fact that this group might buy car insurance, what for? Life insurance, what for? Home insurance, what for? They won't spend the money to do a will. Somehow there's a problem there. It's also about, I think, confronting death. But the will is the foundation. And in the will, sorry?
Let me ask you, why do you need to spend money on a will? I just wrote it down.
Okay, so different countries, that's a good point. So there are do-it-yourself kits, there's downloadable things, but it's sometimes worth the cost of being with a lawyer to advise you on the rules in your jurisdiction. So even in Canada, as one country, we have different rules from province to province. And what happens within a will, you could write a will that's invalid because, for instance, in BC, you cannot write your wife or husband or spouse out of your will.
Sure.
So you put yourself in a contesting situation. So the value of legal advice is to make sure that your wishes are within the parameters of your location. So, but the will, it has to be there. And in the will, you have to be able to identify who your executors are going to be, who your backup executors are going to be, who your beneficiaries are, what you want dispersed to them. And when I deal with my clients, unless the beneficiaries are very young children, I say, this shouldn't be a Hollywood movie. You know how the family gathers around in the lawyer's office and we're all waiting. What did Dad leave us? And it turns out, oh, he left it to her. You know, it could be anything. But a will should not be an unpleasant surprise. And so I actually encourage my clients to review the will with their executors. And if they feel comfortable, to review the basic parameters with their beneficiaries. Now, you say, well, why would you do that? Well, because sometimes there's wishes and sometimes you have ideas about what you might want to do with money, for instance, donating money. And if you don't tell your kids, hey, I'm giving 10% of what I'm worth to my favorite charity, they could be confused, they could be angry. So it's sometimes better to have that out front. I think I was really blessed because despite the fact that I wasn't all that interested in reading my parents' will, they did sit me down and they said, review this. These are the terms. Do you have any concerns at all? And are you willing to do this job? And I had to be very grown up and say, sure, Mom, I think this is all just fine. And I'll be happy to do that for you. But it's true. And, you know, I've personally had a will ever since when I was young, because when you join the Navy, you fill out your will, your supplementary death benefit, and your next of kin form. And so having a will all the time was a normal part of my life, but it's not a normal part of other people's lives. So the will's important. The other thing that's important, and again, the terms will vary according to your country, a power of attorney. And that is if you need someone to act on your behalf and do something for you, like pay your bills, for instance, or make some decisions for you. And again, according to the laws of your land, that the power within that may vary. In some cases, if you are incapacitated, mentally or physically, the power of attorney may or may not be valid. You might need another type of agreement to cover those terms.
Oh. So, for instance, if I am very ill, maybe an accident or something, and there are some things to do, like paying the taxes or whatever, I would need to declare that somebody else can do it, and I would need to say to my bank, oh, this is my husband, he can go to my money and use it, yeah?
Generally speaking, yes. So again, you know, it's power of attorney is, again, you have to talk with your lawyer, but the power of attorney basically is like being Mark. You can make all the decisions that Mark would make. Mark can make all the decisions that you would make in your best interest. Now, some lawyers will hold it and only give it to you if you go to them and say, there's a circumstance, because it is such a powerful instrument. In other cases, it's up to you. You can have the people who do it, but they can do anything. So again, that's a little bit of a trust thing. So those are the things that I encourage people to do in the legal section, is have those discussions, figure out what they want to do with their belongings. Do you give it away while you're alive? Do you give it away near death? Do you downsize a bit so it's not so hard? Like, what goes on with all your possessions? Furniture to charities, furniture to be sold at auction, family heirlooms, all these sorts of things make part of this legal discussion. Yeah, so that's one chapter. How are we doing?
Yeah,
okay.
I noticed that.
Do you feel the heaviness coming on?
No, that I didn't do that, and my mother didn't either. So we went to the attorney afterwards, and they opened the letters, and we agreed on, you know, it was not much to agree on. All 5 children, and we was no problem with the heritage. The house was sold after a while. Everybody got some money, and that was it. And my sister got the nice furniture, which is some value, you know, but my mother is in Germany, my sister lives in California, and it was really not the case to ship it there. So some of my nephews, Franziska got those, she was interested. So it was all very easy, but I wasn't aware that we should ask how it is here, because I have this property and I really don't know what to do with it. I would do the downsizing, and we are trying to find people or to buy it or to rent it or something that we can leave a little bit the responsibility. So
to others, yes.
Yeah, but in the meantime, it's a good reminder to
just to think about those terms. Because you're right, there's lots of practical aspects. Because what sometimes happens, though, is that if you haven't sufficiently had those discussions or written out your wishes, things like but I want the dishes. Nobody wants the silver, by the way. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how little, some people want lots and some want nothing. But the other thing that goes in this section is that if you have been given the power to be responsible for somebody else, then you need to hold that legal document close at hand. So if you're an executor of somebody else's will, you may have a copy. If you are the person who has the living will responsibility for making death decisions, you may have to hold those things. So it's not just your own legal instruments, it's the ones that you may be holding for others. Okay?
Sure.
All right, we're going to lighten up a bit here. The next area is banking. And banking has gotten very interesting because in the old days when we had a nice little paper book and the teller filled out the amount and we carried around our book with us, it was very straightforward. But now we have multiple bank accounts. We have online banking. We have banks that don't physically exist. They just exist in virtue. We have often more than one bank account with more than one bank. We might have multiple credit cards. We might have multiple loans, lines of credit, mortgages, car loans, whatever. So there's a lot going on there. The other thing about this is what's going on in your banking or your Visa card? What are the automatic deposits? What are the automatic withdrawals? Same thing for, I'm sort of losing my point there. The point is that these things are not as clear as they used to be. And so knowing who has control of those accounts, so in some cases you might have other people who have signing authority on your account, and in other cases you might not. So I, for instance, have accounts with my daughter because she went to school in the States, and I had accounts with my son because he went to school in England. But my husband wouldn't have access to those accounts unless his name was on it. Okay, so there's another little decision. Do you want to make your money accessible? But what's going on there? Because as an executor, that person has to be able to shut down your bank account and then manage your money too. So knowing what's going on in banking, just even from whether it's not the executor, let's say you have to cut back on your expenses because you've lost your job or you've lost your wallet, something's lost. And now you need to figure out, how am I going to get better control of your money? Well, if you've documented what your liabilities are, what your assets are, you can respond much better to that. Much more quickly. Yeah. Like I had my Visa card compromised recently, and I have to go and all the places where I have automatic withdrawals off my Visa card and update with a new one. Those sort of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you don't think about when you don't have the case.
We have a bunch of automatic deductions.
Yeah.
You
should know what they are.
Yeah.
You should know what they are. Yeah. And by the way, sometimes some spouses have what we'll call runaway accounts or a secret bank account. And you have to find those.
No,
we don't.
But you have to find them. You have to find them. So that's banking. So that's all about writing all these details out. And sometimes there's passwords associated with those. So knowing what your passwords are or your PINs associated with those accounts is often important. The next area is investments. Now, investments has a couple aspects. First of all, do you have investments? What are they? They might be property. They might be stocks. They might be savings accounts for retirement savings accounts, stock trading accounts. We have all sorts of vehicles here in Canada, so it's hard to compare. But essentially, where is your money and who's managing it? Now, if no one's managing it, lots of people are very happy because they have enough. But there comes a time when things will change, perhaps because of retirement or loss of employment, or you've just decided you've come into a lot of money and you need help. Sometimes you need a financial plan to answer those questions. Will I have enough? Can I afford to replace the roof? Or is my home going to go into slow decay as we age? So a financial plan is a good thing to have as soon as you can, but not everybody feels like doing that. But using all this information that we're building up in this life log, because we're now in chapter 3, this is the sort of information that you take to an investment counselor because they want to know who you are, how you live your life, and what your expectations are, your assets and your liabilities. So you can see how now this is starting to be used in different areas. Okay, so that's investments. Any questions about that?
No questions, but I see that I don't have in place anything of that. I always hope that I will have enough to live when I'm older.
Well, and you know, since we are living older, this is actually interesting because financial planners used to plan for just post-retirement, 75, but the average age expectancy here in Canada is actually 82. And I think it's a lot higher if you live in BC because we don't have snow and ice here in Victoria. But now financial planners are planning out to 105 because clients are running out of money in their 90s. So our longevity is great, but if you look how long we've been working and then how long we might be retired, like it's some miracle of savings that is making it, the magic of savings here that's making it possible to continue living in the lifestyle that we want. We want to eat the good food and we want to have nice clothes and we want to keep the house warm enough. Maybe go on a trip, maybe pay for internet. So knowing you have enough, a financial advisor can help you determine that. So I encourage my clients who don't have that to have those conversations. The next thing that happens is, I don't know, we probably all have this in common. Anybody got any bills to pay? Well, it varies again by country, but there are so many bills we pay. Some come in the mail. Some might come by e-post. Some might never come because you've made some arrangement through your bank. Many of these for controlling the names on the accounts come with usernames now, online access to statements, and again, the passwords.
Yeah.
They show up again. So knowing what bills you have to pay and how often they happen. Some are only once a year. Some are 4 times a year. Some are monthly. Having a good idea of how they're paid and how much they are gives you a good picture, again, to manage yourself financially should things change, or if somebody needs to step in and help you, they know what bills have to be accounted for in the bank account. Not too bad. Okay, so that's bills.
I'm starting to glaze over here. Yeah.
No, I want to ask a thing. The password disaster. How do you make sure that nobody who shouldn't get your passwords doesn't get it? And only the people who should have them get them.
Right. Okay. So the people who should have them are probably very few. And there are many ways to do it. So I usually advise people to do what makes them feel most comfortable. For some people, they like to use the online systems where there are master passwords and they pay a monthly fee. And they keep all their passwords in the system.
I don't like that.
Lots of people don't. Other people, they put it on a spreadsheet. And they can maintain it that way, because maintaining passwords, it is a disaster. How do you absolutely use the right word? Maintaining your passwords is really important, especially if, I forgot it, so I've changed it since I wrote it down. I can't remember where I put it. Like, these sort of things happen. So sometimes people will do it in a spreadsheet. Sometimes they will do it just in a little book, a nondescript book, because you have to be able to make it work sometimes without your computer.
Yeah, and I had some of the passwords and things in my little book, and I took it in to the holidays, and then it was in a bag which was stolen out of the car. Fortunately, the computers they had stolen too. We immediately deactivated them, but they were not clever enough anyway. But
it's a toughie.
Yeah. It's really. I don't really know how to have it safe. If you have it in the computer, even on the spreadsheet, you keep it on the computer. Somebody comes in and steals your computer, or then you have it in the cloud. Do you want them in the cloud? So,
It's a tough decision, and I think everybody has to make their own. I advise it's printed out somewhere. So print out somewhere is usually my advice as a backup, or on
hide
a fob.
it.
Yeah. Or on a fob, like on a USB drive.
Yeah,
something backed up. But without trying to put myself at risk, this looks pretty boring, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Not a bad place to store a password. But again, it's personal preference. So. But passwords are big. I'm going to help you jump here because I'm watching the time. So the next thing is key documents and items. So we moved lots of times. And everybody has their own filing system. And sometimes people's filing systems are maintained. That means you do remove things from them from time to time. And other times they're just added. So sometimes there's these vast family filing cabinets of papers from 20 years ago. Where are the ones that matter? Where are the birth certificates? Where are the passports? When do they expire? Where's your marriage certificate? Where's your record of service? All these things. And you say, well, what does it matter? Well, I'll use an example. Here in Canada, if I'm insured through my husband's Navy pension, if anything happens to him, even though I am collecting medical and dental life insurance and they know I exist, the moment he passes away, I have to produce the marriage certificate along with the death certificate, even though it's been many, many years, because governments will ask for original documents. And if they're all over the house or they're buried in something, then when you need them, you may not be able to find them. So what I say to my clients, we have to identify them and we have to know where they are. If you want to keep them in the left side bedside table, no problem. But let's write down where the key documents are.
And remember where you wrote it down.
Yes. That's why one place is better than many. And the other thing is you could put it in a safety deposit box or a fireproof safe, because we do have natural disasters all the time. Like we have flooding here, we have fires here, we are in an earthquake zone here. Lots of things can happen. So if you can protect those key documents, you should do so. Yes. And with this also, the key documents, I'm just going to check my list here, because if there's any types of agreements, so things like income tax forms are important, how long you've holding on to those, any separation agreements or prenuptial agreements, titles of ownerships, vaccination certificates, warranties, family home inventories, emergency contacts. And the thing is that with the kids, they're putting so much on their phone, including their passwords sometimes, that if anything happens to the phone, they have nothing. So I do think that paper is the new app, that we have to have this balance between the two. And so with my clients, I help them put emergency contacts on their phone, and I give them a paper card saying, write this down in case your phone smashes, and put it in your wallet. It's simple, but you sometimes need a backup.
For sure.
But key documents. Now, okay. The next one is actually a whole lot more. Sorry.
Can I ask, would you say, for instance, you have the marriage certificate, should we do a scan and also bring it up into the cloud or wherever? These things?
So you can do a scan, but depending on the laws of your country, they sometimes require certified original copies.
We have.
Yeah, I know, but still.
Certified original copies. So a bank can do that for you, and then you can have copies, and you can list all the 5 locations you've hidden them, and they'll work. For the most part, those will work.
Unfortunately, my bank is in Alabama.
Yeah.
No, Italian banks don't do that. That is America and Canada, not here.
Yeah, anyway. It varies. It's all about that. Now, the next section is, I will say, a little bit more fun. It's the social section. And in that, we look at everything that's going on in our life. So are we volunteering? Who will miss you if you don't show up? Religious affiliations. How are you managing drafts? What are we doing with those? What sort of clubs do you belong to? So you might belong to an alumni club with your university, or a Rotary club, or whatever. Who's going to miss you there? Who's going to look after the cat?
Yeah, good question. The dog?
Or the dog. The pets to passwords, in some cases, the farm, like how are the animals going to be attended to? And so it's about thinking about those sort of things. The other aspect, it goes into more of the personal, in that, well, do you have a story you want to tell? Do you have family recipes you want to pass on? What sort of legacy do you have? How well are you looking after your health and your mental well-being? And how are the family dynamics going to be affected if anything happens to you? So I use the terms pink and purple to describe the occasional delineations of responsibilities in the home. For instance, if the wife is the gardener and the cook, and the husband is the financial manager, how prepared are pink and blue to be purple? Because if you're the only one who knows how to cook and you get sick, grocery shopping, cooking healthy, good food, you need those skills. And lots of people don't develop those skills because there's a control issue. It's what I do, or I know how to do it, therefore you don't have to learn. Well, what if you do have to learn? What if you do? So in some cases, my clients find themselves, both men and women, the woman had never, ever in her whole life paid the bills, ever. Her husband looked after everything. All she had to do was write a check or use a Visa card. That's it. He dies. She's filling out more health forms than she's ever seen before. She's never filled out a healthcare form. And she has to go up into the office where she's never really been. And there's all this paperwork and there's bills and you don't know where to start. So just creating that, like sharing and opening that up and making it possible for bills to be paid by the other person. Or the garden. The garden used to be my territory. We have a very big garden. And when my husband retired, he started taking an interest in the garden. And I'm like, you want to participate in the decision-making about what goes in this garden? Okay, I guess it's time. And then how do you care for the plants? So actually it's great because we're caring for the plants together. We're learning how to look after the plants. Other things like working appliances, changing times, the heat, the recording TV programs, working the computer. These are often separated jobs in our families. But we really should take care to give up a little of that power or take on a little bit more responsibility so that we can cope without the other if we need to.
Yeah, and then because otherwise learning without the person who can teach you is much more difficult. Huh?
Yes, and if you're in the position of grief, it's even harder. So it's nice that everybody can learn how to cook. And load the dishwasher.
Oh.
He's good in that. He's good in that.
Speaking of cats, moment.
Yeah. Other things that I look at in terms of social are who are your friends? Because do you have an up-to-date address book? Such a thing as a paper address book. What are the relationships with people? Young people often don't have an address book. Everything they have is on their phone. So if you were their parents and you wanted to contact their friends, how would you know the difference between their friends and their business acquaintances? You know, so I encourage people to actually identify who their friends are. Other things are things like a bucket list. Are there things that you want to do looking forward 5 to 10 years from now? What do you want to achieve? And what do you see as the triggers for making changes in lifestyle or work or relationships? Other things like earthquake kits, volunteer work you may do, and anything with social media. We need to know all the social media accounts you have. Emails, Facebook, iTunes, LinkedIn, whatever. What do you want done with those? If anything happens to you, do you want them to continue? Do you want them to shut down? How do you give control to doing that? So these are all the sort of things that in the social we look at, but it is also about how to make the best out of life. And this is where I love what you guys are doing, because I feel like, as I was saying the other day in the other podcast, Heidi, wake up everybody, we're still alive. We need to, and yeah, I know, who knew? And why not plan for our act 3, our later life? Like, we plan so much as children, we plan so much as adults. And now just taking a rocking chair approach to the rest of life, it's what, really? So the social aspect is sometimes about getting people to think about that. And the other thing is relationships. What do your circle of friends look like? Are you lonely now? Do you only have each other? Do you only have our friends? Do you have your own friends? Who do you socialize with? Because you know that as we age, affiliations is the strongest indicator of long life. So we need to have mixtures of friends, and we can make new friends in older years. We can. And it's worth the investment. So those are the things we do in social. How are we doing?
The list is getting pretty long here.
We're almost done. Guess what? Speaking of long, it's time to say what's the final chapter, and that is advanced care and end-of-life decisions. So in that one, you talk about, who are my doctors? What are the wishes I have for being made comfortable in a hospital? Do I want medically assisted dying? What does my representation or living will look like? Who has the power? What do I want at my funeral? Flowers, friends, poems, photographs, location, cremation, burial, what? In the home, not in the home, all those sort of things. Music, officiants. If you write it all out, it makes it a whole lot easier than subjecting your family or kids to the pressures of perhaps a funeral director who might be unscrupulous. Get that out of the way. Get it calmed down. Also, looking at life before death, if you're in your home and you need to go into supported living, where do you want to go? Do you decide when you're at your weakest? No. You should decide while you're healthy and know exactly. I've visited 20 homes, and of these 2 make my cut, and I've had the time to do it, and I know where I'd like to be if I need assistance as I get older. I also know where I want to go if I get dementia. And you plan those things out so that when the time comes, you know why you're making that decision, and you've already decided where you want to go. Because sometimes staying in the home is not the best thing for you. Maybe it's too lonely. Maybe it's, as Dr. Bill Dahamas would say, it's too dangerous. There's stairs, there's falls. Maybe you just don't want to cook and clean for yourself anymore. Maybe you want somebody around your table in the seniors communities. Maybe you want to be with people. So those are all the sort of things that I take my client through. And at the end of that, they manage. They learn to manage. And they learn to manage with ongoing change.
So this is fine, everything, and it makes sense. So I wonder how you deal with this rejection of doing it, the fear, because many people don't really want to think about that they could die and something could happen to them. Oh, we hope the best. And they think doing these things, I mean, they, a little bit me too, and my mother for sure was that. When I think about these things, then I attract them, you know, so better not think about it, so I can survive.
Heidi, that is so common. I had one client who was later in life, a physician who said, well, if I get a will, I'll die. Well, let's turn that around. If you get a will, you won't die immediately. I mean, for some people, once they've done this work, it's more like, I've done the work, I've made the plans, I'll manage it as a living person because I need to manage as a living person, but I've dealt with it. Now I can get on with life. And there's actually a lifting of facing up to that responsibility, because if you've ever seen what happens to a family in moments of grief and trying to work through any of this, it's a burden. And I try to instill in people, it's your responsibility. You know, this is your life. You should clean up after it too. And once you've done it, it sits there. It's gone. Like, it's okay. Now I want you to think more about the social, about the living, the volunteering, the bucket list. Like, think focused on that, because that is where you are living. So make the best of it. But Heidi, you're absolutely right. There's cultural biases, there's language issues, but there's actually a peace of mind that comes with doing it.
Can we also say that actually not doing it is a form of severe egocentrism? Because you leave everything to other people, which you should have done?
Yeah, I think it's akin to not doing your, I used this term once, do your dishes. Like, you dirtied them, you should clean them up. And I've had people say, like, we joke about this. The thing is, we have lots of jokes in our humor, like, well, why should I worry? I won't be here. I don't have to clean it up. I'm like, well, who is going to clean it up? Have you ever cleaned up after anybody? How will your children feel? How will your friends feel? Really? When they're in grief? So I do lay on the occasional reality therapy or guilt trip, but it's part of growing up. And growing up is also looking after your house. I mean, even when I look around my own house, it's fairly, I won't say it's stark, but there's stuff here. And it would be a lot if anything happened to Bruce and I, and our kids had to come in here and clean out the clothes and the silver and the china and the instruments, the 5 guitars and the harp and the piano. Like, it's a lot to ask when you're organized. It's too much to ask if you're not.
Yeah.
That's the real thing. No matter what, it's just unfair not to do it. Yeah.
So who gets your guitars and who gets the piano?
Yeah, exactly. Well, as it turns out, nobody plays the guitars, so we'll probably donate them. And as it turns out, a lot of things that we think are really valuable have life expectancies. So there's this, I saw this program about the piano is no good anymore. It's 30 years old. It needs to be smashed.
Oh, no.
Or you donate them. You donate them. Like, there's music, the conservatory. But if you know that in advance, then you're taking the struggle and the effort from anybody who has to clean up. You say, these guitars all go to the conservatory, or this guitar is so important, it goes to this person. It's what you should do. It's just responsible. Yeah.
Responsibility is not very fashionable at the moment.
No.
What is she
That's
looking
so
at
last
me
century.
for? Huh?
Actually, it should be to clean up the mess in the world is only if everybody takes the responsibility, and that's not an easy job.
And it's so much different. Like, I remember how, like, it's not just the paper bank account, but my father has this thing from when he was 19. And it's a little leather thing, and it was supposed to hold every important document in your family, this wide, because it was simple. You had a phone bill, maybe a tax bill, electric bill. We didn't have a cell phone and an internet and a cable and all these other things. With our coexistence and different levels of technology, it's harder. Yeah. So it takes work to do this. This does take work. And my clients put in about 9 hours to do this, and I put in about 16, like, with them. So another 6 on their behalf. It takes time, but it's worth it. because once it's done, you just maintain it.
You know what? You make me confident. You say it takes only 16 hours. That's only 2 days. I thought it would take with you. Okay.
Months. I know.
No, there's a little more time in the drawers, actually. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, and that's actually one of the things that some of my clients say, that this will take years. I'm like, no, it's not, because it's like having a personal trainer. We have an objective, we know what we're going for, and we're going to work towards it. So you break up the time about how often you do it, because there's sometimes work in between, like you need to go get a will, or you need to go find those documents for me, because I usually am in the home and they go find them if they can, if they can remember. But these things do come up, or we go through it together. But it does take time, but it's worth it. And if you have a focus, and this is where it helps to have a list of things you need to do. So your personalized list, what's going on in your life, you keep it up, like you write it out, and the list stays with you, so that you can look at the list and say, what's changed this year? Did anything change? Okay, well, we need to update our list. We need to add this document. No, we're not doing that anymore. We can take this away. But it's that ongoing review. And as I developed this, because I used to keep things in my special filing cabinet, my husband now says, Gina, we have an update. You need to put this in our life log. Yes. Yes, there we go. Or in simple things like, if we want to ask our government any questions about our income tax, they want to know, okay, we have to ask you a question. What's on line 120? Well, if you have your income tax form right there, they can ask you any question and you'll get the answer, and then you'll get the answer you're trying to get from them. So it's a dynamic thing. And so it's about being responsible, but it's also about being your own change master. And it's doable.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, you are in Canada, no? Not everybody who is watching the video is in Canada. Do you plan to do something like courses online?
Yes. I actually have done this online with clients. What it relies on, it relies on, them being able, though, to go find their documents and find their own lawyers and find their own investment people. Here in Victoria, I already have a network. I'm building my network so that I can send people to trusted people, because a lot of what people need is, who's a trusted investment advisor? Who's a trusted lawyer? Who are the best home care people in this city?
Yeah.
Who are good cleaning people? Who's going to help? Who are the best downsizers? Who's the best grief counselor? And so I could do it initially with the basic checklist for anybody from afar. Absolutely.
So I think at this point you could share your information where people could find you.
Yeah. And I'll be, whatever you say, I'll be doing timestamps, so it will end up in print on the YouTube version of this.
Okay. So. All right. So, you can find me on Facebook under Personal Passage Planning, and I put lots of posts there, many from thanks to Mark and all his good work, and Albert. But my website is personalpassageplanning.com.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my Gmail is ppassageplan@gmail.com.
Okay. So we still have about 5 minutes. We have talked all the time about, let's say, end of life planning.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the other passages? Maybe going in retirement or something like that. Or even, I lately heard in the first session we did with Dr. Oren Amitay that the suicide rate of men is highest around 40. So there seems to be a passage which they don't get, which is particularly difficult. What could you say about that?
I guess what I would say is that if you start doing this early in life, like I recommend that people do this as soon as they're adults, 19, and they start building the skill sets and they start asking themselves these questions. Am I ready to transition? Because if you acknowledge that things change, then you can start looking at transitions. So Other transitions, getting married, having a child, getting divorced. If you're going to divorce, you don't have to do all the work of proving how much your lifestyle is and your assets. You take it, you split, make it fast, make it gone. In terms of careers, for me, careers are a whole other issue, and retirement is an interesting word, which I prefer rewirement because it's more positive. Because I think we're going to be changing careers so many times, and jobs are all going to change and disappear and all those sort of things. But I think it is about having a way of reflecting on what is going on in your life. So there's books like Passages, as you know, that talks about the different phases of life. And I think that really what we need to do as families is just have more conversations. We need to share what it's like to turn 30 when we turn 30 and find out what's it like to turn 30 now. It's apparently a whole lot more fun. But what's it like
more
to
fun
turn
now? I'll do it again. Okay.
Exactly. Well, I would never want to do it again, Mark, would you?
I want to jump in and say on your personal event page on our website, thewisdomfactory.net /Gina-Donaldson, you find also links to books. I think one of them you have already mentioned. There are other two books, and you can, first of all, you get all her information there and some other text, and you can review the video there. And Mark will post the timestamps. That means he writes minute 2 and 31 seconds. We start talking about number one, and then, you know, these things. So it's easy for you to come back. Financial was the first, and so on. So you can easily find what was talked about, and you don't have to watch the whole thing if you want only one information.
Well, what a speed through chapter 8. Well, you know, it is about looking ahead, and that's the thing about planning, right? You got to look, what's on my horizon, what's coming up. And sometimes you have to engage other people in that journey, experts, friends, elders, counselors, teachers. You don't have to go it alone. I think that's really...
That's a good message.
What's going on with me, you know? I've made a few trips, you know, over the recent years.
Yeah.
So this was the hour passed in no time. We are at the end of the hour, and we have to thank you and everybody who has stayed with us so long and will stay in the future when you watch it in YouTube. And please go to the website and find all the information and connect with Gina when you have overcome this fear, because I really do believe when we have done it, then it's like a relief. You never have to think about it anymore. But so we are always pushing it ahead. I don't want to do it. And actually, it's more load and more bother on our system than when we have done it. And then it's over, you know? So it's really good. We will do it, okay?
Tell Gina we'll do it. Tell her.
I'll check up on you.
Okay, good. So thank you very much, and come back the next week. We will continue with the Conscious Aging series for a while, and then we will redo other seasons in autumn, and we will keep talking about age and aging, because this is a fact on life. And even if you are only 35, you know, you are aging. And for some professions, you are too old, you know? So
already.
It's not only about us really old people, sort of old. Are you really old?
No, I've got 25 years to go anyway.
Okay, me too, hopefully. So it's for everyone to really think about it and come to terms and to liberate ourselves from burdens, which then allow us to live, you know, more joyfully. And I really believe in that. And I thank you very much, because the guidance you give is not very normal to find.
I'm holding up my finger because you got your finger on the stop button. No.
What do you want to say?
Well, I want to say it's such a treat when we don't have to ask all kinds of questions. and the person who is our guest just gives us all this information in an organized, systematic, responsible, trustworthy way. That's all we ask of our guests.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thanks to the guests and thanks to the universe that obviously today it worked well.
It
So
did.
thank you, everybody. Till next time. Bye-bye.
All right,
Next
bye-bye.
time. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.